Welcome to Sinful's Horror Stories. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe now for future content. Tonight we have a special guest, Booze and Booze, another great horror narrator in the community. I want to make sure that you guys subscribe to his channel. Go over there and comment that Sinful sent you. I will leave a link to his channel so you can subscribe at the end of this video. If you would like your true scary stories featured on an upcoming video, email me at thesinfulsavant@gmail.com. The link will be in the description box below. Sit back, relax, enjoy while we scare the hell out of you. One night in 1973, the two young McDaniel children of Enfield, Illinois, claimed to see a weird creature lurking in their yard, trying to get inside. Their father, Henry McDaniel, chalked their creepy story up to the active imagination of childhood. However, he changed his mind later that night after being awoken by strange scratching sounds. McDaniel grabbed a gun and a flashlight and peered outside his front door. There, between two rose bushes, he saw a creature that was almost like a human body, just as his kids had described. The creature had 3 legs on it, a short body, 2 little short arms, and 2 pink eyes as big as flashlights, he recounted to a reporter. McDaniel said he fired 4 shots and was sure he hit the creature at least once, causing it to make a hiss, much like a wildcat's, before it ran off toward a railway embankment. McDaniel was stunned when he saw the monstrous beast jump 80 feet in 3 jumps before quickly running out of sight. The police found scratches on the door screen as well as footprints in the dirt near McDaniel's home that looked dog-like with 6 toe pads, yet no clues pointed to an unusual creature. McDaniel's sighting made the reading eagle, but it was clear most people didn't believe it was true. It didn't help that a 10-year-old neighbor faked his own eyewitness account of the beast, only to later admit that his testimony was a prank against the family. McDaniel reported 2 more sightings of the alleged beast to local police, but he said they eventually threatened him with jail time because nobody believed what he saw had been real. McDaniel was adamant and stood behind his scary true story. If they do find it, McDaniel said in an interview, they will find more than one, and they won't be from this planet. I can tell you that. After McDaniel's public testimony about the Enfield Monster, other eyewitness claims began to surface. Monster hunters swarmed the town, and at least 5 men were arrested after firing shots in the area and claiming to have photographed the creature. To this day, no explanation has been uncovered for this small-town creepy story. This happened a few months ago. I'd just gone thrift shopping around 8:30 p.m. at Value Village. I didn't find anything good, but I didn't want to waste the trip, so before heading home, I decided to take my dog out of the car for a quick walk around the block. I smoked some weed and unexpectedly got really into the walk. The night air was cool and refreshing. The rain felt nice on my face, and the ground beneath my feet was unusually satisfying to walk on. It was pretty blissful, so I really took my time circling back to my car. Once I got back, the Value Village was closed, and my car was the only one left in the parking lot. All the lights in the lot were out. I walked through the darkness to my car with very little situational awareness and unlocked it with the fob. I didn't even notice the guy at the bus stop who started talking to me. The bus stop was at the street right in front of the parking lot, about 30 feet from my car. He was behind the bus stop, not in front of where someone would wait for the bus. There was nobody else around. He asked, "Can I have a cigarette?" I told him I don't smoke. He began to come towards me but stopped, then followed up with, "Do you have any money?" To which I said, "No, sorry." I instantly got a bad feeling about the man. Something was off. I've worked with homeless people for years, and I get asked for cigarettes and money often, but there was something different about this. Maybe because the way he phrased the questions was a little different than how most people ask. When I said no, he stared at me for a few seconds, then turned, quickly walked away around a wall and out of sight. At this point, I knew I had to keep an eye on that corner. I just knew he was going to come back. I only took my eyes off it to open the rear door and put the dog back in the back seat. My dog doesn't always get into the car right away, and sometimes takes convincing. I tried to rush it as much as possible, yanking his leash upwards until he jumped in 5 seconds later. I buckled him in and shut the door. I whipped my head back around towards a corner, and the guy wasn't there. He was behind me. He was quietly approaching, about 10 feet away with his hands in his jacket, not in his pockets or the bottom of his jacket, but through the top of the slightly open zipper. I made eye contact with him, and he stopped moving, just looked in another direction and froze. I used this time to get into my vehicle and lock the door. It felt like I took ages because I was still slightly stoned, and my reflexes were slow. If he hadn't stopped walking, he probably would have been able to reach me before I got in. I drove off and mostly forgot about it until now. There was nothing else in that parking lot. No reason for him to be there. It was super weird. Ever since then, I've remembered to be more mindful of my surroundings. I was in the Navy, and we were streaming off the coast of South Carolina. It was 0230, and I was standing the junior officer of the deck watch under instruction to get qualified. It was dead quiet on the bridge like it gets on the mid-watch. The bridge of a destroyer is dark at night, just the ambient light from the radar and the red lights on different gauges. I remember the sea was calm and gentle with rolling swells about 6 feet. It was warm and the only noise was from the hull cutting through the waves. It was a clear night, millions of stars. The OOD said he wanted me to work out on a Williamson turn, which is used to turn a ship quickly and come back on your original course. He wanted to do the turn and had notified Combat Information Center that we were going to be maneuvering. It's standard for a man overboard pickup. I had the turn worked out and just said, "Ready to," when the bridge-to-bridge radio came to life. I'll never forget this. "Oh God, help us, we're sinking." The voice was a woman and full of terror. I ran to the bridge. Wings and Old, the lookouts, we just picked up a mayday and looked for lights. The reply came from the U.S. Coast Guard in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. Vessel calling Coast Guard. What is your position? Vessel name type. How many people on board? The OOD had called combat and asked them to do a surface sweep for a small contact. The woman came back on and said, "We're a sailboat. Sea skaters, 6 people. We're trying to get a fix." The Coast Guard operations asked if they'd seen any lights on shore. The woman cut him off and said, "We're going down fast. Oh God, no. I think we're at latitude 34, minutes 8. And the radio went silent. Then we heard U.S. Coast Guard calling Sea Vessel Sea Skater. He repeated the call 2 more times. Then he said, "All stations, this net, look for sailing vessel Sea Skater, size unknown, position unknown, carrying 6 souls. Vessel reported to be sinking. Last transmission 0234 local 0734 Zulu. Report any survivors or wreckage to the United States Coast Guard." The lookouts saw nothing. The radar, no contacts. That's when I realized I had just heard 6 people probably lost at sea forever.
A couple of years back, my best friend and I went on a road trip to the States for a music festival. Met up with some friends. Saw lots of things and whatnot. One of our friends comes back home with us. He needed to get back home for school, and his buddies didn't want to head home yet. So we decided to drive straight home in shifts. Took a full 24 hours for the drive. My story starts when I'm driving, night shift about 2 a.m. It is a beautifully clear night. Full moon, no clouds, middle of the summer party type night. While noticing all these conditions, I also notice we have followed the GPS onto a back road and have driven into a huge valley. Open fields, not another car or house in sight. And it's important to note that we hadn't seen anyone or anything relating to a human presence for a few hours now. Upon entering this valley, we lose our satellite signal. We then have no satellite radio, no GPS, and no cell phone signal. Doesn't really matter, as I know we followed this road for a couple more hours. About 20 minutes after entering this valley, and after losing all our connections, we come upon a bridge. As we get closer, I see a car pulled out of the side of the road. Not uncommon. People sleep in pullouts when they can. What is uncommon though, is this car has all of its windows blacked out. With all the light from the moon, we should have been able to see at least partially inside, but it was completely black. Getting closer, we also realize that it has no license plate that we can see. No big deal. We assume that it's abandoned out here. That is until we pass the vehicle and almost immediately its lights turn on. And then it pulls out onto the road behind us. This is where it gets creepy. The vehicle starts tailgating us in the middle of nowhere, and we can't see who it is or anything inside. We try to brush it off. Maybe he's lost too. Needs to follow someone out of the area. Doesn't really explain the windows being blacked out though, or the lack of a license plate. With this car now following us, I start to get an uneasy feeling. It's subtle at first, but begins to grow stronger and stronger. Soon, an all-out, get the fuck away from this vehicle ASAP feeling comes over me. I find it also important to note that I do not frighten easily. I do not panic, and I only have ever gotten this feeling in times when I know for a fact my life is in danger. I try to push all these feelings aside, as it seems like this is really a silly response to a possibly explainable situation. That is until I see something in the middle of the road. Almost on cue, this car backs off, as I and my companions try to make out what is in the middle of the road. Coming closer, we see what looks like a body laying in the middle of the lane. And this is not a big road, mind you, and like I said, it's also a back road, still paved, but very small. At this moment, at the sight of what appears to be a body in the road ahead, we start freaking out. I, in no way, am stopping for no one in this desolate and isolated area. There are no other vehicles around other than the one that's following us. And I can see no housing or lights as far as the eye can see. No cell phone service, no satellite, nothing. I quickly tell the others that I am not stopping. I'm going to try to go around or through. By this time, we are almost on it. There's no room to go around, as there are no shoulders on this road and deep ditches on the side. We're now close enough to see that it's a scarecrow. And I drive over the top and onwards. The car that was following us is small enough to go around, and it continues to follow. I speed up, it speeds up. I slow down, it slows down, until I punch it. After about 2 minutes of this, the car finally slows down, does a U-turn, and drives back. Now my friend in the passenger seat turns to me and says, "I swear I saw spikes in that thing. Lucky for us, we were driving a big truck, and the wheel span was bigger than the scarecrow on the road. Luckily, we never even touched it. It was another 30 minutes before we reached a place that had cell phone service, and satellite picked back up. It wasn't until we reached home at 5 a.m. that we remembered during this time there had been a couple of missing people reported in our province. Ones who were on vacation and driving home from states who have never made it home, or were never found. My passengers fully believe that we escaped some crazy Wolf Creek type of death. We contacted the police about it, and made a full police report. However, we were unable to pinpoint the exact location. There wasn't really anything we could do other than file the report. We definitely didn't want this to happen to anyone else, because it was obviously creepy as hell.
This story happened a few years ago. I was in my early 20s and was studying in Paris, France. I was going home from uni. I usually took a short bus ride and walked the rest of the way. That day, I felt slightly uncomfortable. I could sense some guy looking intensely at me. I was used to unpleasant, unsolicited gazes, but this time, his gaze felt beastly. It's hard to explain why, but I felt like prey being stalked. I decided to get off the bus a few stops early. I wanted to avoid him and didn't want him to see where I usually got off. Like I learned in the movies, I waited until someone else pressed the stop button and waited until the last moment to stand up and leave. I did notice him getting off the bus. Just as I was feeling the relief of having escaped an uncomfortable situation, I glanced over my shoulder and there he was, a few meters behind. I had the distressing feeling his eye had just looked away the moment I turned. I walked into a shop, took my phone and pretended to be taking a call. When I couldn't see him anymore, I exited and made my way home as fast as I could. I kept looking back into the busy street. I zigzagged, crossed the street at every crossing. Finally, I believe that him getting off at the same stop as me was just a coincidence. When I reached my building, I glanced back one more time. And there he was, his alarming gaze on me smirking. I ran up to my apartment, climbing the stairs 4 at a time. I reached the top floor, squeezed through my door, locked it and froze. My intercom was ringing. Don't ask me why I picked it up, and I definitely regretted it the moment I did. I could hear the opposite flat intercom ringing as well. He had pressed all the buttons one by one, hoping someone would open. But now, he knew my name. Gabrielle! Oh shit. I felt like a deer in the headlights, frozen. Open the door, please, said a pleading voice. I just want to talk to you. Somehow I couldn't move or speak. Come to the window, he added. Look at me. You'll see I'm not a bad guy. Something clicked. He wanted to locate my apartment in the building, and I was not going to make that mistake. I hung up in shock. I waited by the door without moving for what seemed like hours. When I finally managed to calm myself down, I called my long-distance boyfriend. Call the police, he immediately said. Why didn't I call the police? I don't know. Today, it definitely would have been the first thing I would have done. The fear of making a big deal out of something not important, perhaps. What an idiot I was. So I called my best friend instead. I just didn't want to feel alone. I told her all about it, and after a while I felt better. Safe, and we started laughing. Suddenly the intercom rang again. 2 hours had passed since I'd come home, and I answered. Gabrielle, open, please. I still remember the chills I felt. He was still there. He was there this entire time. I was silent, petrified. He was silent, but I could sense his trepidation. Gabrielle, let me in. I'm so thirsty. Just give me a glass of water. This broke the tension, and I hung up. Curled up in a corner, literally in a recovery position, terrified, I waited. I was scared to make a sound. I knew he couldn't hear me from the hall, but I was scared to even breathe. The intercom rang again, and again. I didn't answer this time. I crouched to the sofa and fell asleep in exhaustion. I heard the intercom ring one more time in the middle of the night. I woke up in the morning, afraid to leave my apartment. I called my dad, who came to pick me up. There was no one in the hall, but there was a note in my mailbox that said, Gabrielle, I'm a nice guy. You should have opened to me. We immediately went to the nearest police station. The police listened and of course told me that I should not have hesitated to call them. My dad called the locksmith to install digicode on the building door the same day and wrote a message to each of my neighbors, asking to not open the door to anyone they didn't expect. He sat in the cafe in the front of my building with 2 friends every evening for more than a week. Thankfully, I never saw that stalker again. After this episode, I used a different route to and from uni every day. I kept my phone tightly in my hand, looking back every few meters. Today I'm still very observant of my surroundings. I never answer the door if I'm not expecting someone. So to anyone reading this, if you ever find yourself in any kind of uncomfortable situation, call the police. Don't be an idiot like me. And be safe, everyone.